Okay. So, did the evidence regarding the study in pediatrics and adolescent medicine prove that these kids who had learned about safe sex and were engaging were also becoming pregnant and contracting sexually transmitted diseases?
No, thankfully not. But the study was rather meant to observe teens who had been exposed to comprehensive sexual education compared to those who had had abstinence only. Results identified that the students who had comprehensive education had a greater number of individuals engaging in premarital sex. Data was not collected to identify those individuals who decide to lead a life of premarital sexual adventures, but rather to demonstrate that comprehensive sex education does not achieve what abstinence education can. And that is the understanding that abstinence is the only way to remain pregnancy and disease-free.
You stated that the National Institute of Child Health and Development found that teens who watch shows with a great deal of sexual content were much more likely to engage in sexual intercourse. Are you alluding that comprehensive sex education is equivalent to a full-fledged porn, which would cause teens to engage in sex?
Porn has nothing to do with this matter. The earlier a teenage girl becomes involved in sexual activity, the more likely she will encounter sexually transmitted diseases. In fact, a CDC study released earlier this year that an estimated 1 in 4 girls between 14 and 19 will obtain an STD due to premarital sexual engagement. As I previously said, and I stand by my words, President Barack Obama should start by encouraging parents to be more involved in their children's lives, rather than support legislation for new sex ed programs that hamper those parental rights.
Okay, so you stated that sex education severely impedes a parent's freedom to raise their children the way they choose, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so in school we teach our students about philosophy, science, and other morally and ethically controversial topics. How is providing our students about the facts of sex any different?
Well, let's talk about the age in which a child has fully developed cognitively. As parents, there comes a point in our child's lives where we recognize that they have transformed into a man or woman and are prepared for the facts of relationships and sex. The abstinence-only program identifies that science and philosophy are topics that cause individuals to question their understanding of existence. But sex is an entirely different matter. Sex is a choice that once is made cannot be taken back. We can change how we think and the direction of our beliefs at any time, but pregnancy and sexually transmitted diseases are something that can forever change a child's life.
All right, and at this time, many points have been brought up, and Caitlin now is going to counter some of Gabby's arguments, and then we will allow Gabby the opportunity to do the same.
And then I'll come back for another one.
Most of them usually do. You're good at it. Start us off the right way.
So my opponent began her argument stating that for the first time, researchers had clear evidence that abstinence education works, and it could change the conversation about young people and sex. I do not mean to insult my opponent, but this information seems to be stretched way beyond its capacity to be recognized as true. The abstinence-only program wants you to believe that even thinking about sex will get you pregnant. And in the words of Coach Carr, get pregnant and die. I want to wipe away the misconceptions and pull back the blanket of promiscuity and underage sex. Reality, kids have sex. Okay, now that we've gotten that out in the open, we need to understand the benefits of comprehensive sex education can provide for our youth, and as they are constantly faced with never-ending pressures to say yes. Sex education is a response to the increase of teen pregnancy and birth rates, and is a method that was founded on the belief that ignorance will not keep our children naive or away from wanting and further engaging in sex. Comprehensive sex education has been identified to be so much more than a few classes designed to frighten the pants off kids about sexually transmitted diseases, stinky diapers, and the unpleasant new lifestyle that having a baby would bring. It's about learning about the new life they're inevitably going to come into as they grow and mature. Sex ed educates students on body image, self-esteem, physical development, and the formation of positive, healthy relationships. Sex education helps teens understand the importance of loving their own bodies, respecting themselves and others, and providing them with the tools in which they, when the time comes to make the big decision, they are equipped to handle it. I'm not sure where such ignorance evolved from, but what adult is interested in teaching a 6-year-old about how to have sex? Sex education is not Sexy Time 101. It's biology, anatomy, psychology, and sociology all wrapped up in a comprehensive program that teaches our kids the truth about who they are and what their bodies are capable of. There is a fear of sex that stirs within the American people. Sex is looked upon as an act that should be taken with a great assault and used to simply procreate, but only when one is physically, mentally, and financially prepared to take on the challenge of having a family. Personally, I agree that creating a life is a great responsibility that should be taken lightly, and I will go as far as to say that my opponent and I agree on this matter. But the problem is, how are our kids supposed to learn about what can happen if they have sex and come to understand the potential consequences and life choices if they are not provided with the information? It is similar to asking me to explain Einstein's law of relativity, but never had any education in the subject whatsoever. We want future generations to live without fear or embarrassment about their genitalia. We want them to implement protective sexual habits within the context of any relationship. My opponent referred to the Heritage Foundation, which reported that 8% of parents believe that promoting contraception is more important than abstinence. Parents should be the ones parenting, not the state. Okay, so sex education is not taking the role of educating their children away from the parents, nor is it brainwashing them to think condom before abstinence. Sex education wants to work alongside with parents, teaming up to educate their children about the truth of sex and relationships. Sex education also is a firm supporter of abstinence and waiting until marriage, or when an individual is cognitively developed to understand their actions and the reality of the potential consequences. This fear of possibility is what is restricting our students. We need to recognize that in our day and age, teen pregnancy and birth rates are on the rise. And even though shows like 16 and Pregnant or like 100 and Counting are shows promoting sex and babies, we need to properly educate our children on the reality of sex and relationships. For one ignorant mistake can affect their lives forever.